just to give you an overview of what the agenda is today, we're going to talk about really the importance of partnership working. So that's obviously working with our practice learning partners, which we know everybody is very good and very able and very equipped at. But really what we're going to focus on more importantly today is working with members of the public and working with our students as well when we're co-designing and developing programs, also when we're delivering them. So like I say, we've got some guest speakers that are going to talk to you about that, and we've also got some members of the public and some students just qualified, maybe, I think. So we've recently been students on both SCPHN and SPQ programs, and they're going to tell you about their experiences. So I think it's really good to hear about the value from them, really. And then, like I say, at the there is opportunity for you to ask questions, but you can put them in the chat box as you go if you're like me and you have to ask it as it comes into your head. Okay, firstly, I think it's probably quite important that we talk about why we talk about co-production, and it's very much embedded in all of our standards. You'll be aware that when we're producing programs, no set of standards should stand alone. So we have, well, 3 sets, but then also your program proficiencies that go together. And so this is embedded, co-production is embedded across all sets of standards, and that's what we must look at together, a bit like a building block, really. So excuse me if I'm looking the other way, my other screen is on, and that's where I'm looking, so I'm not just looking out the window. Just to let you know. So part 1, our standards framework for nursing and education, that embeds all nursing and midwifery programs. That's the core of the program, and in there it really highlights about the importance, and you can see how when you are developing programs how you have to meet these standards and these standards as well. Okay, so there is 4 elements there that talk about how to involve and why we're supporting involving service users, we're calling them here, but members of the public is how we're moving, the terminology we're moving to now. So what we want programs that are designed, developed, delivered, evaluated, co-produced in the whole sense, really, with our service users. So our practice learning partners, our academics, our stakeholders as well, and our employers, but so are these members of the public and our students, really, that are engaged in these programs. Okay, we want to have these. I know Beth is going to talk in more detail, so I'm not going to, I've had a look at her presentation, so I'm not going to say anything that is going to be repeated in hers, so that's good. But we want to have these people involved because these are the people that are accessing care, and these are the people that really know what care looks like on the front line. So it's really, really important that we listen to their views and we have their experience within our programs. Okay, and that should be like you say, about in the developing of the program, what a program looks like, what people want, but also within the assessment of students as well. Part 2 is, I'm sure everybody's well aware of this, is our standards for student supervision and assessment. And again, we have part 1 that we have to meet, and then we have part 2 that we have to meet as well. And that talks about, so part 2 talks about how in student supervision and assessment, you must meet the standards as set out in part 1 as well. So the standard, the framework. It's a right mouthful, that, isn't it? The framework for nursing and midwifery education. Okay, and it's also important there to highlight that we want students to have to learn from a range of people, have a lot of opportunities for assessment and development and learning throughout their programs, and in lots of different learning environments. And that includes learning from people like service users or members of the public as well, and getting their feedback, but also really getting their experience on board to help develop their knowledge, and other students as well, because we know students learn very well from each other. Then, for use, part 3, we have our standards for post-registration programs, which I'm sure everybody is well embedded in at the moment. And these will be your standards for SCPHN, your part 3 standards for SCPHN, and for your SPQ community programs. On top of that, you do have your proficiencies, obviously, to your practice role. So again, these standards highlight that you must meet the standards as set out in the framework for nursing and midwifery education and the standards for student supervision. So you can see how all 3 sets come together there. When you're looking at one thing, there will be something in each set of standards that supports that action. Okay, I'm now going to hand over to Beth, and I'm going to put my mic up and camera off to try and maintain my connection. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. So my name is Beth Wiley, and I am the Partnership Training Officer for Vocal, and we are Voices of Carers across Lothian. So despite the Geordie accent, I am up in Edinburgh. So a little bit about Vocal. We've been providing services for unpaid carers for about 30 years in Edinburgh and Mid Lothian. And part of what I do is I work with any professional that is likely to come into contact with unpaid carers to improve that kind of carer experience. And one of the ways in which we do that is by collaboration with the university. So we work with Edinburgh University, we work with Queen Margaret University, and we work with Napier University to ensure that the kind of carer experience and carers are considered from the forefront and from the onset within that, career within nursing. So that gives you a bit of context as to why I was invited along today. Oh, next slide, please, Elaine. So I was kind of digging around and having a bit of a play about it, and I came across this quote, and I thought it was quite pertinent to what we're exploring today, and why collaboration with service users, with patients, is so important in any changes that we make within health and social care. In this quote is, nobody is more infectious and enthusiastic than patients in improving their care, and they are a natural inspirer, which is exactly why we want to collaborate with them. But how do we do that? So next slide, please. So certainly at Vocal, there's lots of reasons why we collaborate with unpaid carers. We do it to make sure that we're always in line with our values, to make sure that we're always putting that carer at the forefront. We do it because it empowers people. It gives ownership of the service that we offer, and it provides equity. It drives development. It means that what we want to, oh, have I lost you? Thank you. It drives the development of the service and the changes that we make, because we want to make sure that those service changes have the biggest impact, they are meaningful, and they mean something to the people that we are supporting, and we want to get it right. We don't want to just guess. And on a much larger scale, it influences local and national strategy planning, and it provides us with an opportunity to campaign for change. So there's lots of reasons why we collaborate with unpaid carers. Next slide, please. So, but how do you do that? We talk a lot about collaboration and about partnership work and about co-delivery, but I think sometimes we often get lost in the how, and certainly as institutions, education institutions, it's quite challenged to do that, and how do you get contact with those key partners to be able to co-deliver and to get their input? And I don't know whether people are familiar with this, but the Plan, Do, Study, Act model is a really good way, and something that we use and look at to do that collaboration, because it's not just a case of asking people their opinions. It needs to be a bit of a strategy. It needs to be organized. It needs to be meaningful for the people that we're asking. People want to know what we're doing with the information that they're giving us. So it's really important that from the onset we have a clear idea about what it is that we're trying to achieve. So we really have to define from the onset what is it that we need to get out of this engagement with our service users. We need to look at, how are we doing this? How are we going to carry out that investigation? How are we going to get the data? What data is it that we want to gather? What's the best way to gather that? And that can be quite a challenge, especially when you don't have, sometimes people can be very hard to reach. Carers are incredibly busy, they don't necessarily want to give up their time. And we have to be quite creative in how we do that. And certainly we work a lot in partnership, and I'll talk about this. We have a lot of organisations that come to us, and certainly people doing research or wanting to hear a carer's voice that come to us and ask for us to support and help with that, because it is very challenging to find those patients' voices. You know, once we have that information, we really need to unpick it and think, what is it that we want to do with it? What is the rich information, and how are we then going to do it? So it's important that you have a plan. I have got a slide, I have got some resources that can give you a bit of a guidance, Steve, on how to do this. But how will you know if the change is an improvement? What changes that you are going to make, how are you going to know that they've made an improvement? How are you going to measure that? So it's really important that throughout every stage of involving, service users and patients, that you are very clear on what it is that you want to achieve. Next slide, please. And am I missing a slide? No, I'm not. So there's lots of ways in which certainly we work with other partners to help share that kind of carer voice. Is we can help with Steven groups. So partners come to us, whether that's universities or other organisations, come to us and go, can you help us deliver a Steven group? This is what we need to achieve. Can we kind of borrow almost the expertise of the carers within your services to help us shape these services? Surveys. We quite regularly do online surveys, and we get in fact, even just yesterday, I had somebody from Scottish Government get in touch with us to ask to share a survey that they're doing on our social media networks, because we've got a big reach. So and they're not going to have contact. They don't, our carers are not going to be on social, on government websites. They're not going to be on government Twitters, but they will be on our services. So making sure that you are accessing other services, social media, to help get that word out and to help recruit patients and service users to get involved with the changes that you want to make to the programs. And again, engagement groups, contact services, and make sure that, can they facilitate a group for you and feedback? In local and national engagement opportunities, look at what is available at your fingertips. What are your local services around? How can they help you? Who are the patients in the service users that you want to be involved in the co-delivery and the co-development of your new programs? And there's lots of ways. But the main thing that I'm trying to say, I suppose, it's been a very long week, I would like to say. I think I've had my busiest week to date at Vocal. And I'm on my final hump here, is take advantage of those relationships that you've got. If you have stakeholders that come and deliver within your universities, make sure that you're taking advantage of them. I think the university took advantage of me to come along today, which we were happy to do, because it means that we're then able to kind of spread the word. Please get carers involved. Don't try and do this on your own. Make sure that you engage as much as you can. We want to help, so please do reach out. Next slide, please. And there's lots of reasons why we do this. There's lots of reasons, kind of going back to what Elaine was saying at the beginning there. Service users and patients are a massive, valuable resource. We want their experience. We want them to be involved in the redesign of services, and to make sure that it's truly patient-centred. It's so vital to gain those insights and experience, and understand their experience of NHS. Only then can you kind of really get a rich overview of what changes need to be made. They provide they provide a different perspective. They're on the other side of the fence. It's important for equity to ensure that you have everybody's input and everybody's experience, and it opens up new ideas. Those discussions that you have in a room. Even just yesterday, I was at a conference, and there was things I'd never even considered before. I thought, God, I know about that, but I'd not thought about it in that situation, or I'd not thought about it in that context. And it changes your view, and it will change what you then do with your programs. They are the ones that are experiencing the service, and it's important to get, that holistic view of what's needed, so that it can inform areas of future development. They can identify gaps that we will never see, because we're not the person with that lived experience in their situation. And again, I will say this time and time again, they are a vital resource. They are, I could talk about that for a long time. I had a slight brain freeze there. I think, and fundamentally, it's about sustainable change. You want to get it right. You want to make sure that you've got all of that information. You want to make this change once. You don't want to make the change making assumptions and then put it into practice and realize that actually that doesn't work because and you haven't included the the experience and the views of the people accessing the service. It's really important because only then will the change be sustainable and it will produce better outcomes. And it also builds trust. It builds buy-in. Building that relationship between the community and the public and health and social care is fundamental across the board. Next slide, please. Couple of things in there just for a bit of food for thought. I certainly found them quite interesting. Is the Plan, Do, Study, Act. It's on NHS England website, and also a paper from Health UK which looks at engaging and communicating with patients, carers in the community, a guide to kind of collaboration, which I found really quite helpful. Yeah, next slide, please. And that's me, actually. I don't know why I'm saying next slide. That's me done. I suppose fundamentally, I said the key messages are, it's really important that you collaborate. You need that richness of information. You want to make sure you've got equity. You want to make sure that you're speaking to as many people as you can in order for it to have impactful, lasting, longer change. Thank you. Any questions? And involve your partners, key partners. Honestly, get them to do the work for you. We get bombarded, and I think you don't have to do this on your own. I suppose is what I'm trying to say is you can have a bigger impact if you do work with the stakeholders that are already involved with your organisations. And if you haven't got, reach out. People want to help. Third sector love helping.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Beth. And we'll come to questions at the end if there's any more. Are you okay to stay on? Yeah. I think you've made some really good points there, isn't it? It's about we need their opinion and we want to be involved in actually using them networks that they will reach out to. So I think it is really hard. I know from the work I've done across the UK since I took this role, actually, to be honest, the biggest questions people ask us is, well, how do we get people on board? So thank you to QMU for putting you in touch with us, and that's brilliant because actually I didn't know you were available as well, and I'm in the northeast of England as well, so not too far from Edinburgh.
It's interesting because actually, we have that relationship and service users and patients trust us. They trust the third sectors, so actually take advantage of that. Sometimes when you reach out on your own, people go, well, what does this even mean? How does this make a difference to me? Why would I get involved? And we can almost broker it and make sure that people do understand how it impacts on them and the impact that they can have on shaping services. People like to be involved and they like to have a say. But yeah, apologies if I wasn't as eloquent as I usually am. Certainly, definitely a bit more tongue-tied than I usually am. So please bear with me. I'll hand you back over to Elaine. Thank you.
That's lovely, Beth. Do you mind just typing your email address, if you don't mind, for people to contact in the chat? Yes. And then people have got a direct contact for you. That would be great.
Absolutely. I'll do that.
Thank you. Now we have got Mostyn, who is a fabulous member of the public who's been involved very heavily up in Scotland. Now, I know we had some technical issues with his camera when he came on. Mostyn, are you there? Is he muted?
Right, I'm now unmuted, but I'm here in body, if not in person. Yeah.
That's lovely. We can hear you. Great. So that's Mostyn. I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. As Elaine has said, I'm Mostyn. There's some good news and bad news. The good news from your point of view is that you can't see me, and the other good news is that there's no slides for you to watch either. A brief history of myself and what I've been involved with. I'm 79 years of age. I'm married for 53 years. I have 2 children, 3 grandchildren, and I'm basically a retired Inland Revenue investigator. I'm here today as a service user and not a clinician. My experience of the NHS is from TB as a child, pleural plaques from exposure to asbestos, and I was diagnosed in May 2011 with bronchiectasis. And I also suffer on rare occasions from labyrinthitis. So I have quite a lot of involvement over the years with the NHS and the doctors. As a result of my bronchiectasis, I became involved with Chest, Heart and Throat Scotland and the British Lung Foundation. And for my sins, I also sit on the cross-party working group in the Scottish Parliament, looking into lung health and clean air in Scotland. It was through my link with Chest, Heart and Throat Scotland I became involved with Queen Margaret University some 8 years ago. The involvement has been in the form of assisting with the initial interviews for the nursing and paramedic degree courses. I've also been as a patient during the exams. I consider, therefore, that the experience with age, raising a family in life enables me to bring a balanced and unbiased view when working with and assessing the students. Basically, I know what I want from a nurse and I know what I'm looking for from a nurse. Besides the formal part of the students' training, I firmly believe there is a role to be played by those who access the NHS with different medical conditions. What do I mean by that? I mean simply speaking to the student, possibly in a classroom setting, but on a more explaining and how it affects my everyday life, pointing out both the positive as well as the negative aspects of any condition. I consider this to be a vital part of their education and training, and this would of course have to be with the agreement of the university. I also hold the view that Queen Margaret University should consider reintroducing the one-to-one 5-minute interviews with the prospective students. I consider this to be a vital part of the selection process as the group exercises that they carry out. A simple put question allows the less vocal candidates to express themselves fully, which some find it difficult to do in a setting. I've had research and how it works when it works joined up. My wife fell nearly 4 weeks ago and fractured her pelvis, and we've experienced, all I can say is excellent service from the NHS period of time from therapists. Basically, that's all I'm going to say. I'll happily take questions on it later. I would just like to say, finally though, I have over the past 8 years had the privilege and pleasure to witness the dedication of the lecturers at Queen Margaret University in ensuring that the students have a successful, enriching experience throughout their time there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mostyn. I know Mostyn, he was very humble there because I know he's very heavily involved in Queen Margaret University, and he does support the district nursing programme and I think the pre-registration nursing programme quite a lot with the sort of OSCEs and things like that for the service users. And like you said, he has some really good ideas there. I mean, it is in our standards actually, Mostyn, so it's good that you can point that out, that service users should be involved in interviews, and that's not just for pre-registration, that is for post-registration as well. And it's vital to have their perspective on it. I know sometimes that can be challenging because obviously people have very different lives and very busy lives, but there needs to be some consideration into how you can get the service users views across and get the some questions in there, the perspectives of the service user into your interviews. That is in your something to think of. I think obviously some university programs have really got this going, but it's something that we need to move forward with a lot more, I think, in post-registration.
I mean, they used to do the one-to-one, the 5-minute one-to-one, and when you read the statement that the students submit with their application to go on the courses, you can usually find something in there that they can talk about, and that helps develop them as well. And I think this thing of speaking to the students without the lecturers being present about your various conditions, I think is vital, because they know what they're going to face when they're on the wards. As I said before, repeating myself, I know what I'm looking for in a nurse, and that's why I think this is vital that people like myself sit on these interview panels. I know what I want when I'm lying in that hospital bed. I know what I want the nurse to bring to me. And I think it's important that the public know, or like myself, are given the opportunity to speak to yourselves and what have you, to make sure that this happens.
Absolutely, thank you so much, and we'll come back to you at the end if there's any more questions. Thank you, Mostyn, really appreciate your time. Now, I believe next, now I don't know if she's here because I do apologise. We may have Lindsay. I feel like on a telephone, radio.
I don't think she's been able to join us, Elaine. I can't see her on the list. No, sorry.
Right, okay, not to worry. Well, we did have Lindsay, so I apologise for that, who contributes to nursing programmes. I'll just give you a bit of a background so you know, in Northumbria at Newcastle, and Lindsay has a son with severe autism. So she goes in as part of a neurodevelopment day and neurodiversity day, which you will see is embedded into the new SCPHN standards as well, about knowledge of neurodiversity. And I think one of our students is going to talk a bit about that as well soon. So they have a specialist nurse to go in, and Lindsay goes in as a mother to give the mum's perspective really on what it's like identifying and caring for a child with autism and the needs and the challenges that come with that. And actually, when I met her not long ago to talk about this, it's still ongoing. So although I'm getting this one all the time, I want to say he's about 13 now, her son. If she does hear me and I've got that wrong, that's not very good, is it? But I think he's about 13 now, but it's like an ongoing. But actually what she talks about is how much, again, a bit like what Austin says actually, is that how much it's really important that students get that value from parents, and when it is, also members of the public, because actually their experiences are very different and everybody's experience is very different. And Lindsay will say herself, her experience, she's had a very good experience with community services and public health services, but not all of her friends who are in them groups and in them situations have. So it is really important that we listen to them and we value that. And actually the feedback from the sessions that Lindsay does is quite remarkable, and anyone that is sort of done teaching and things like that will know, students always love listening to people on the ground actually having that experience, and actually they get so much more from it than from us that are teaching it, or I'm saying us, from yous, sorry, went into another hat there, I think, that are teaching it on the ground. So it is really important. If Lindsay does appear, we will come back to her. So obviously there's a lot about service users and involvement we've talked about there this morning, and obviously you've got I think I can't see, but yes, Brett's email is there, and I think that's the biggest tip probably of today, is reach out through the services that are available. And so don't think you have to do this on your own, because it is really, really hard, and I know it's really challenging, but actually if you've got groups out there in your communities as well, that is probably a really good place to start. And the other thing we're going to talk about is involving students. Okay, and I know on SCPHN and community SPQ programs that we're here to talk about today, it's quite a short, intense course. So it's not the same as in pre-registration when we have students with us for 3, or with yous for 3 years. I don't think I know where I am today. I keep saying us, don't I? I keep getting confused about my role. Or with yous for 3 years or so, but actually these are qualified nurses who are very passionate about the role and have been in it. So it's really good to get their perspective, because they're the ones that know what it's like to do that programme on the ground. So some things I'm going to just quickly talk about, then I'm going to come to the student. Or will I come to the student? I'll come to the students in a minute. Okay, so I'll just give them a minute to prepare themselves. I can see them starting to come on there, so that's great. Okay, we know that involving students, okay, helps learning meets the needs of the public as well. And that's a bit, again, what involving the service users are about. But actually, these are people that are on the ground, and we want to have programmes that are really efficient and excellent and deliver such good care. But actually, we need to have the voices of the students as well, because we need to make these students fit for purpose as well. Okay, we know that having students involved helps that empathy and that learning from others within programs, because actually they've recognised, and particularly students at the moment that have just completed a program or are completing a program on our old standards, as to speak, rather than our newly published standards, and there's a lot of change that they can see happening, so they'll be the good ones on the ground to say what it's like for them. Really encouraging that active participation. Okay, and objective assessment. It's really easy, I think, in academic land to think about assessments in one way or another, but actually what's that like for a student? Are we reaching all of the student, are we, you know, every student's needs and individual aspects to teaching and learning? Okay, and we know student feedback is part of programs in the end of program development, and that's really important. And we know we have certain surveys in pre-registration. I know post-registration aren't quite there completing national student surveys yet, but that's still taken on board, and we know that programs do really well at taking that on board. So this is a really good opportunity now to hear that student voice in the development of programs going forward, and to really help, you know, encourage a really good, effective workforce and enhance employability. That's from our perspective, but obviously what's most important is what's happening from the students' perspective. And this is some student feedback. I'm going to come back to that one actually, and I'm going to come to the students first because then they might cover some of. Okay, Rachel, I think you're first there. I'll let you introduce yourself, Rachel, and tell them your role.
Okay, thank you. So my name's Rachel Donnelly. I have just completed the Specialist Community Public Health Nursing course in school nursing, and I've just started my new role as a school nurse. I'm just waiting for my pin to come through, which is why I'm still in my light blue, not my navy yet. I'm going to talk to you today about the input that I've had into the programme development. So throughout the course, I've studied at Manchester Met University. So throughout the course, the university's provided opportunities for us to give feedback. So at the end of every module, we were given an online questionnaire that we filled in to give some feedback about what worked well, what didn't work well. We also had opportunities throughout the course to highlight any areas of concern or worries or things that we felt didn't really work, but that university thought was working really well. And that's done via regular meetings with your tutors, the skills coach from university, the students and practice, so my assessor and my supervisors. That gave us a really good opportunity to be able to feedback things that some things look really good on paper and you think they're going to work really well, but actually practically once you get them in place, they don't always fit well within the role. So it gives a really good opportunity for you to sort of feed that back to university. And then at the end of the course, we were involved in a consultation about the new SCPHN standards and what the programme will look like for the students that start it in 2024. So we were given really clear instructions around what areas were available that we could make some changes to, and what we couldn't, and what was sort of set in stone. We were then given a list of actions that had already been completed by the university, and we were asked to give some sort of feedback on the draft timetable and the plans for the new course. What was really nice actually was things that we'd fed back on throughout the year at the end of each module has been listened to, and things have been changed in the new programme. And actually it looks great, and I'm really jealous of the students that are getting to do it because it looks like it's going to be fantastic. That sort of co-production recognised the experience that the student nurses were having, because like you say, we're the boots on the ground, they're the people that are doing it day in, day out. And because things change so quickly, we had a module on contemporary issues, for example, and a massive issue at the moment in school nursing with young people is vaping. It's a huge thing with young people, vaping, and there's not very much information available. It's still limited research because it's still a relatively new sort of phenomenon. It's only been around since the early 2000s. So it was really useful to be able to have those discussions in that module with the university tutor and your peers, and everybody be able to sort of work together and give suggestions of what they're working with in their area and what they're finding helpful. So it sort of helps to tailor the programme to the needs of school nursing, you know, the current needs of school nursing. I think it really helped us to feel validated and like our experiences mattered, especially as the course has now been changed and some of the things that we found challenging have been changed around and moved. For example, there was blocks of placement and blocks of university, and there wasn't quite as nice a mix between the two. It was nice to have a mix of placement a couple of days a week and university a couple of days a week rather than a large block of placement. I think it just gives the perspective of those who've experienced the course and helps them to make improvements for the future. it's really benefited me as a school nurse, because it's helped me to fully understand partnership working and the importance of it. I actually, as part of my course, completed an empowerment project where I co-produced with a local high school's LGBTQ+ support group a toolkit to help the school nurses when they're supporting LGBTQ+ young people. The feedback from that was really good, and I've won SAFNAS, which is the School Nurse and Public Health Nursing Association's Student School Nurse of the Year for the project. And I think it's really helped the young people in Stockport to sort of connect with the school nursing service, and it's recognised their lived experience and helped to develop the service and help to improve the care that they're receiving. Yeah, I think that's everything.
That's lovely. Thank you, Rachel. And I do echo, I was there when Rachel did a presentation about the LBT project, as to speak, and you've got really good feedback from the young people, and I think that's what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah,
actually,
absolutely.
how will you be reaching these young people? How you're going to make a difference to them?
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Rachel, and good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck for the future. That's lovely.
Thank you.
I think next I have Jade, and who I will let introduce herself, because she comes from a perspective.
Hello, my name's Jade. I'm currently a district nursing student in South Wales. I attend Cardiff University. I've just finished my first year of my SPQ, currently on the old programme, we call it. Quite a long-winded story, but I actually started my SPQ in 2019 in the Midlands. COVID hit and I ended up moving to Wales after getting taken off the course. I was studying at level 6 then, moved to Wales because of family, and started the course at level 7. In the midst of this, I've had one child and I'm due another child now. So I'm being transitioned from old SPQ to new SPQ. So it's quite complex, but I am actually really pleased to be joining and finishing with the new SPQ because of the new parts of it. For example, as it stands now, I wouldn't have been able to do my dissertation with my current university. I would have had to have gone to a different one. It's looking like I will be able to do it in prescribing if my trust will support me, and that'll be the independent prescribing, which I'm really interested in. I also thought in my, well, I guess it still is my current programme until I withdraw from it for the new one, that we were missing the patient assessment element, which is now in the new one. The university have wanted our opinions from the beginning. They've always asked what we want to see in the course. And it's funny thinking how different the SPQ in England was compared to Wales. I was on the 1-year accelerated route, whereas now I'm on the 2-year part-time, which I do much prefer being in the role. I've obviously been in the role for quite a while now, so I am quite experienced. So it was really hard to step back and come away from it all for a year. So it is nice to do it all together. What else was I going to say? I really love the course. I think it's really relevant to our jobs. It's just everywhere does it so differently. But the university have always wanted to work with us. In England in 2019, they were talking already about the transition to the new SPQ, and they were asking for our input then. And it seems crazier in 2023 now, and it's still. I know that in the Midlands they are still running the old programme, and I think they were hoping to do it 2021 or 2020, but because of COVID, I presume that is held back. My big thing is for university lecturers to be clinical and relevant, because I have found that a lot of the time it's very different, the district nursing services now from even 5-10 years ago. So just having that current relevant up-to-date experience in the clinical field. The core basics absolutely are the same, but it's what's happening to the role and how these new elements of the SPQ, how we're going to put them in our current role, because currently I'm not independent prescribing would not be part of my role as a district nurse now. I think that's it.
That's lovely. Thank you, Jade. So I think just to point out, yeah, the new standards, as you know, were published last year. In 2022. So no programs could run on the new program until then. I think all the consultation happened through COVID, as you can imagine. And when they started in 2020, doing the consultation and everything. And you're right. There's some really important points that you make there about what your student experience has been like. And prescribing is optional, as you will all know. So if you do have prescribing in your programs, it is optional. So it's good that you're going to get that opportunity, I believe, from what you're saying. And it's good to hear that your experiences and what you think about the value of that. So thank you very much, Jade. We may come back to some more questions in a bit. And then we have, let me just move my slide. Chico, hello. Okay, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Chico. Oh, sorry, your mic's muted. Do we need?
Oh, hello, good afternoon. Oh, I'm Chico Chamwaita. I prefer to be called Chico. My full name is Chikomborero. One of the SCPHN students. I'm quite grateful to have this opportunity today, just to share my perspective, and also just being grateful and with the passion that I have for this role. So first of all, I was an adult nurse and was very adult driven. And when I joined this role, I realized that it's more pediatric driven, which is something I will talk about after. I'm going to talk about the things that I was involved in within the course and what the university offered for us. So we had the opportunity to do course evaluation forms that we did online. There was consistency with reminder of filling them in, and we were also given an opportunity to have a group discussion, and also there's a forum that allows us to share our thoughts and things that we think could be changed, and also the positive outcome things that we've also achieved. And the module leaders also did allow to also have email and direct communication with any feedback and support. They were very supportive and welcoming. There was also formal feedback sessions, and also, student representatives also did share emails, and if we have any things that we want to share with the module leaders that we have. But so far, while I was doing the course, I had the opportunity to have the modulators come to the base where we were based, and they would offer us feedback of what the feedback that we've shared and the outcome, and also give us the flow and a one-to-one, even if it's a group or a one-to-one, to share if there's any things that need discussing or things that they can change. So we were given that opportunity, which is something I am grateful of, and I think it would be great to continue. However, I can say at times people are quite reluctant. Some of my colleagues were quite reluctant to share their thoughts, and they were quite reluctant to share how they feel about the course, because they felt like, oh, if I'm known to have said something that's negative, maybe that also will have an impact on me as an individual or in my grades. However, I said, but it was more reassuring my colleagues that if we need change, then we have to also share our thoughts and feelings and how we see this, and so that they can be change. So I'm quite grateful in that aspect. And what also worked well for me as a SCPHN student, and also as a parent, I have 3 young kids. What worked for me is just that, first of all, the most important thing was I was motivated and managing my time well. I also had strong clinical skills within me, and I was able to adapt to change. This role gave me an opportunity to also think critically. I have gained good communication skills, working with different professionals in a multidisciplinary team, and just respecting the different cultures and reflecting on my practice as well, and building professional networks. So this has also allowed me to learn a lot of committing to lifelong learning, and having also the emotional resilience of also prioritizing what's in that moment, and also seeking peer-to-peer support, because at times it can be overwhelming and you feel that you need this support. And even during the module, there's consolidation time. That consolidation time comes with 2 assignments, and you're consolidating, and you're trying to focus in one thing. You're trying to say, listen, I want to deliver. I want to make sure I deliver on my consolidation. Then you think of the 2 assignment coming up. So I felt that was slightly overwhelming. Hopefully that's something that can be looked upon, and otherwise I am really grateful. Where I was working, I was very, very supported. The support was amazing, to a point I did stay in the role, and I'm in the role, and I'm grateful for that. The things that I would like to say, any areas that I would suggest developing or change, I was thinking the module, they can incorporate more neurodiversity in the module, to educate the skilled student about the diverse range of neurological conditions. This is because I can give an example in a way whereby there's the NCMP child measurements. So the outcome, we make phone calls to support families. And then, so what has happened is that I found there was a certain situation in families where majority were neuro, diversity families, whereby it can be enuresis. And then it starts from being selective eaters that leads to constipation. Constipation comes to then ends up being enuresis, and it goes on, and it become more complex in the children or the young people having something like prolapse. So I feel that neurodiversity module, where that talks about how we can support families with children or young people who have selective eating, or how we can just support in that moment while waiting to do further referrals, is something that I would really be grateful if that can be incorporated. And also, I said I'll talk about how I was an adult nurse and now I feel I'm pediatric driven. I'm quite passionate and really grateful. Every time I'm in awe, I do have every moments where I have pinch me moments, in a way that I'm grateful of what I'm doing right now for the young people. I have had episodes where, as an adult nurse, I met older adults who you can say, this person is articulate, they're intelligent, they've done everything. Something could have gone wrong, something could have been missed. And in that state, you would engage a conversation. And now I feel that I am supporting the young people, the children, so that they don't get to a stage where someone would question something went wrong. I want the younger generation and the young people to say, I had an amazing school nurse. If it wasn't for the school nurse, I had the opportunity to kind of focus, and I want these young people to be advocate for tomorrow. The children, the young people are the future for tomorrow. So when you support them with their well-being, and I have young people I've seen grow and blossom, and that gives me so much satisfaction, and I'm really grateful. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Chico. You sound like the perfect person for the role. And I know you were just as passionate last week when I spoke to you, and that's lovely. And actually you pull out some really good points about the type of things that be in the programme. And from us at the NMC, I think what's reassuring is most of that is in the standards, so it should absolutely be in the new programme. So sorry, just something fell down there, the joys of working at home. Things like child development knowledge and neurodiversity, awareness of all of that, as well as all of the other complicated things like safeguarding, is all part of the standards. So absolutely will be part of the new journey for students. But thank you, and thank you for being a school nurse, I think I need to say. Well, to all of you, I think thank you for taking on the role, to all of you, thank you. I'm going to go backwards on my slides now, because just a little bit of feedback that we got just to share that, because I wanted to come from you, and I think you have probably said all of this anyway, and it's so much nicer to come from people themselves, from the students themselves that are doing the job. And I think that's it. You've said all of this actually, but the feedback that we've had from students so far is actually contribution really helps them see how assessment can work better for them. And a bit like what Rachel said, that actually they've contributed so much, now she wishes she could do the programme again. I'm sure she doesn't actually want to resit it again, but actually that it feels you know, like will be a programme that will be really exciting to do. And although it, like you say, the assessments are there, and like you say as well, Chico, actually when assessments are submitted is quite an important factor for students, and that is some feedback that we get as well. But having people as part of the programme, what students are saying is it actually makes them feel valued, it makes them feel that their contribution matters, and it helps them feel that they're building something for the future. So you're not only helping, like you say, the people that you care for, but you're also contributing to the education of future nurses as well. And I think that's really important actually to take that on board when we are thinking about developing services and developing programmes as well, and that are fit for purpose for the future. So thank you very much, I think, to all our students and our service users, and we will come to them in a moment. I'm just going. Yes, this is just summing up, really. I think the title wouldn't stay on, and that's what threw me for a second there. So just to sum up the things that we've talked about today, really, it is part of the NMC standards and has been for a while, but we really must make sure we're aware, and we're really better at bringing our members of the public, our service users and our students in on that co-design right from the beginning. So like Mostyn said, actually the recruitment of students as well is really important, and that we've got the service user opinion on that, but actually it's the whole process that we're looking at. So it's not just about getting an opinion and that's it, but it's about moving that forward, so that progression as well. Okay, and it being service, obviously that goes without saying, but the service users that are relevant to your programme. So people like Mostyn in district nursing, and people like the young people as well, which is hard actually, but it is worth thinking about how you get the voices of young people in school nursing as well. And it was funny, I was just talking to the people before we started today in some consultation that we've done recently, where a young person said to us, oh, school nurses should have a text service. And actually we know that that is available throughout the whole of the UK, but actually the young people don't, and they're the people that need it. So it's brilliant that practitioners know we've got such a good service going, but if it doesn't reach the needs of the people that are using it, there's something there, isn't there, that needs to change. So it is really, really important that we're listening to the voices of these people. And interestingly, what comes across from what people tell me through this consultation process is actually what matters to the service users is how you're delivering the care and what care you're delivering. They're not so worried about what the programme looks like from an assessment point of view or how many weeks is in the programme, but they're really bothered about what we're teaching and the knowledge and them advanced communication skills that are really, really hard to think about how we teach. That's why it's really important to have service users on board. And actually, if you've got service users and students on board in your programme delivery, that will certainly help when you're thinking about teaching things like motivational interviewing and advanced listening skills. It's really good working together. Okay, you have your documentation, you recruit in partnership, and you build that, you keep that relationship and that partnership going throughout your programme delivery. Okay, now that's the end of that bit. So before I come on to the frequently asked questions, I'm going to ask if there's people have got any questions about what we've discussed today. So I can see the chat has been quite quiet, which I assume it means you've covered all of the answers, everybody. So thank you very much to all our speakers today. But I will just see Chris, who is in our Education Standards inbox, has anything come in there?
Yeah, there is one in the inbox, which I will quickly read out to you. It's about entry requirements onto onto SCPHN programs. And the inquirer says, I can see in Part 3 Standards for Post-Registration Programme documents that under Section 1, Selection, Admission and Progression, Section 1.1.1 states that the applicant needs to be an NMC nurse or midwife capable of safe and effective practice at the level of proficiency before being considered eligible to apply. And the inquirer has asked whether we could clarify, will people therefore be unable, will universities therefore be unable to admit newly qualified pre-registration nurses or midwives straight onto our SCPHN programs, you know, if they've qualified in the September, registered with us in the September, and the SCPHN program also starts in September. So I think that's one that's come up both under the old standards. I think it was an issue as well as something that's being asked now under the new standards. Can people go immediately upon qualification and registration straight onto SCPHN programs?
I know what I want to say, but Chris, you're our standards specialist, so do you want to give an answer on that one?
Well, my personal opinion, I think, differs from the official line on this one, because my personal opinion is that they shouldn't. I don't think they should be allowed to, but I know that that's not necessarily the agreed line or the line that is taken.
I think, yeah, the standards do, I'm just going to open the standards there. The standards do make it very clear that they need to be, before applying, doesn't it, that they need to be a registered nurse or midwife before considered as eligible to apply for entry. So I think it's quite straightforward in the standards that they need to have their PIN before they apply.
I think there's also an issue there as to whether they should have gained a certain amount of knowledge, skills and experience before they're being allowed to apply, rather than being allowed to apply basically immediately. And I know that there are differing opinions on that, both within our organisation and out there more widely.
Yeah, so we don't stipulate, do we, at the NMC, that they need to have a certain length of experience, but I guess it's the fact that they've got to have a PIN. They've got to have their PIN now before they apply, means that they're likely to have a year's experience before they get on. You're absolutely right. There is a lot of differences of opinion across the UK actually about whether, you know, students should be qualified for a certain length, nurses, sorry, should be qualified for a certain length of time. But from an NMC point of view, we don't stipulate that. We just stipulate that they have got a PIN before they're eligible to apply.
They must be on the register before they can apply. Yeah. They cannot apply in sort of like in advance in anticipation of having got their PIN by the time the course starts. That's quite right. They must already have the PIN before they're allowed to apply.
Thank you. Is there anything else there, Chris? Please?
Nothing else in the inbox, although I believe one of a member of one of the people in the meeting has raised their hand to come in.
I will come. I can't see their name, unfortunately, because there's so many people. Is it Siobhan?
I think it's Siobhan Bradley.
I don't know if she can speak. Actually, you might have disabled her mic. Copy, Julie.
I've enabled it, I hope, Siobhan.
Yeah, and I'd just done the same as well, Julie. Good to go.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. I was just thinking on what Chris has said, and I guess my concern is in regards to SPQ, where people are starting SPQ courses, but they never worked in that specific specialty area. And I'm curious about that, because it has been where we've had difficulties where students do struggle because they haven't worked in that specific specialty prior to starting SPQ in that area. So just wanted your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. We would say exactly the same, that they need to have a PIN. The only difference would be if you put prescribing into your programme, the prescribing standards do require that they have their PIN for a year before they apply onto the programme. So that it does change it a little bit, and that's for all programmes. If you put the V300 prescribing in, prescribing standards are different, so you have to adhere to them as well. And they require, I'm sure it's 12 months that they've got their PIN before they're eligible to apply. How universities and practice partners add things to programmes and for shortlisting is up to you, but from an NMC point of view, all we say for basic entry is that they've got their PIN, and like you say, if they've had their PIN a year, if you have V300 in the programme. That's something to think about if you do optional modules, about how you manage that. Sorry, there's somebody else. Sorry, I don't know why I can't always see who's got their hand up.
Hi, Jones.
Yeah,
Oh,
hi Elaine.
Hello, Felicity.
Hiya. I was just thinking that's a real shame, because we've had some really great newly qualified students on our programme who have made fantastic health visitors and school nurses and have been some of our best candidates. It's not just about the fact that you've just done your nursing qualification or your midwifery qualification, it's about your other life experience you bring with you and bring to that role. And that, you know, and when we're looking at individual learners in terms of our programs as well and doing individual pathways through our programs, we may miss out on some really great candidates who can work in our professions, which is a bit of a shame in relation to that.
Yeah, I think we acknowledge that. I think they just have to, because there is some obviously other research that talks about the challenges people have if they come in from post-registration. So they just, I imagine, and Chris is in our standards team and may want to add to it, but I think we have to make a decision somewhere. So all we say is that they've got their PIN. And you know, depending on when your programs start, you know, some people have programs that start in January, and it might be that applicants would apply sooner, but from the NMC point of view, to meet the standards, they need to have a PIN to apply. We don't, someone's asking in the chat there about how much experience would you advise? Oh, sorry, before they're able to supervise. So I am going to come on to that. That's all we say in the standards, is that they have completed their period of preceptorship as a SCPHN or an SPQ nurse. So we wouldn't expect someone who was just qualified as a SCPHN or a district nurse to supervise a student. And you've got the principles of preceptorship from the NMC. And it's very much about an individualised approach that, and in line with your health organisation, and how you deliver that and how long that preceptorship is. But we would expect that supervisors and assessors obviously have both completed their period of preceptorship as a post-registration. Sorry, Julie, is that what you were going to add? Okay. Sorry, if there is I'll let you put questions in the chat as we go along, but I'll just quickly touch on some of these things. Is my slide still showing? Yeah, excellent. So you will see that there is some supporting information available, and we have other webinars available on the website. And I think Julie Bliss is going to, in the chat, put some of the links to that shortly. Some of the extra documentation that you can access that we have made available, and most of that is on the questions that we've got going forward through the implementation, or from the questions and the feedback we've had from McDonald about people going through approval processes or questions that come to them. So some of the things that have come up more recently, we should say, simulation and technology enhanced learning. You will see in both part 1 of our standards framework for nursing and midwifery and part 3, we talk about simulation. And we've had a few questions on is how that looks about in practice. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do, just to give my voice, I'm going to ask Julie Dixon to give you a bit of an outline about simulation here for post-registration. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Just off the hoof there, moving on. Yeah, and simulation, technology, enhanced learning. And I think the reason why Elaine has asked me to do this is because she knows that I'm a recovering technophobe, but also recognition that actually simulated practice, or simulated learning perhaps, should I describe first, and technology that we use are actually methods for teaching and learning. And although we have numbers attached to pre-registration nursing in terms of how many hours that can be through simulated practice learning. We don't have those same things, and Julie Bliss has just kindly popped the supporting information in the chat box. So in terms of the post-registration standards, what we talk about is that this needs to be proportionate within the students' learning, and that is within the theory elements of the course and also within the practice learning elements of the course. I really love the presentations earlier on from the students about their learning and the different approaches and the things that they liked. So I think that, you know, engaging with the people who are on the course to look at the types of learning that are available. There is a lot of research to support that actually the different methods that are used to support students enhance learning. Simulation can help in a number of ways, certainly as a method, because it can actually provide a number of ways in which students are being supported in the same way and being exposed to the same materials, albeit the fact that they may still learn different things there. And of course, we are in very sort of innovative times that technology is moving on incredibly fast. I'm trying to think where I was in Birmingham a couple of weeks ago, and I put on a pair of goggles, and the next thing I know, I'm on a ward having to resuscitate somebody. It was a good job. There was a technician stood next to me because they talked me through what I actually needed to do in order to safeguard and to save the life of this person who had just had an arrest. You'll be glad to hear that that person did survive, because I was able to resuscitate them and provide them with their medication. I actually find the experience a little bit emotive, actually, because I felt like I was there. And actually, all of a sudden, what I did made a big difference to the person that I was supporting. And although I was very unfamiliar with the technology, like I say, the engineer who was there with me, it felt really, really positive. And actually, just even in that moment in time, that the need to act within a certain period of time was already within the technology. And so actually, I can imagine that any student using that type of learning can gain some kind of insight into the various things. Simulation has been used actually for a long time, talking about resuscitation, and so we use mannequins and other different types of things, because actually it would be inappropriate to repetitively practice these types of skills on people. So these opportunities are available, of course, although resources, costs and various other things can often make these types of things challenging. So we are living in interesting times, and I think that simulation and technology enhanced learnings are those areas where things are moving very, very quickly, that can be used as tools to support learning. I hope that helps, Elaine.
Yes, thank you. And you'll see that in the post-registration standards, it talks about proportionate use, and that very much applies to the simulated practice learning. If you're using it as a method of teaching, you can have as much simulation and technology enhanced learning as you like in your program, but if you are using it as a method of practice learning, then that's when it needs to be proportionate across the program. It's about moving away. I think people are obviously, because there's set hours now that have been put in for pre-registration, but this is post-registration. So what we say is it's proportionate across the program. We would still expect students to get a good deal of valuable practice learning, and how you design that is up to you. But it's good to use these facilities and these resources in the program, and we know that actually students learn much better with creative ways of teaching. Thank you. The other bit, I know people have asked about that SSSA, and actually what has come up, we know we've done a whole webinar on SSSA, so I won't go into SSSA in post-registration, but it's more about the parts of the programme, because you will see in our standards framework for nursing education, we talk about a different academic assessor for parts of the programme. Now in post-registration, it's up to you to decide what part of the programme may look like. It may be that you think 1 year, so the full programme might be 1 year, and that is one part. So then it is absolutely suitable to have the same academic assessor for that whole programme if you've designed that as one part. It's up to you in your design of the programmes to decide that and how that looks. And yes, the other bit about SSSA again was Sorry, yes, Julie?
Oh, I didn't want to cut you off in mid-flow, Elaine, but there's a really lovely ask in the chat box from Fiona. And I thought, given the time that we have allowing, it might be nice. Although, actually, interestingly, I don't think the ask was from for us at the NMC, but actually for people who have already been looking at SCPHN courses. So Fiona is currently in the process of developing people who use services and the engagement and their strategy. So actually what she's after is some suggestions, please, perhaps creative ones, of how people have developed their engagement strategy. Now, I am mindful that anybody could answer that question in the chat box, but if anybody is interested in answering that question for Fiona, then just do pop your hand up, because either Julie or myself will enable your mic so you can share your experiences with Fiona. The other thing to do, of course, maybe if you don't want to speak up in front of everybody, is to put your email in the chat box. And I noticed that Julie Bliss is on fire today, because what she has just done is put Beth's email back into the chat box, because of course that's what Beth was talking about almost, well, it feels like ages ago now, but and here seamlessly Beth has just come back. Beth, would you like to have a bit of a word with Fiona about improving engagement?
Yeah, I've dropped Fiona. I'll give her a shout offline. But I suppose my first question is, who else is she involved in? Don't try and do it on your own. You know, what agencies have you got that you've already, that are at your fingertips? Because a lot of third sectors have got really strong connections with kind of service user engagement, because it's a big part of how we develop services, and they're quite a dedicated bunch, and they love to get involved. In fact, sometimes we can't get rid of them. And they often then come back as volunteers. And actually, sometimes even staff that have got their own lived experience actually as well. To be honest, sometimes you even have that at your fingertips, just getting people to wear different hats. But yeah, I would say have a chat with the people that you've got at your fingertips at the first instance. But I have said in the chat, like, Fiona, please do give me a shout, because I'm more than happy to jump on a, quick call and have a look at what you've maybe done already and what's possible. Because I think sometimes it's just good to get together and bounce some ideas off one another. So yeah, please do give me a shout. I'm more than happy to do that. I hope that helps a bit anyway.
But yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. And quite often, I know for SCPHN it can be hard, because they're a very transient population with young children and going families. But often there's groups in the area, isn't there, that have got some motivated key people, and that if you can get into them, it makes a big difference, because they're very good at getting other members on board. Then, some very good advice there. Thank you. Sorry, yeah, I think. Yeah, it is hard, and we do appreciate it's hard, which is why we asked Beth to come on and talk. And I think that's a really good tip, is actually, rather than trying to just reach out to individual people, trying to reach out to groups of people is probably very difficult.
And sometimes I know we certainly get lots of find your local charities, find their local inbox. They've got a generic inbox, and just be cheeky. Just take a punt. The amount of just random inquiries that we get through, and then people go, oh, Beth, is this so, and I'm like, actually, yeah, we have got somebody that can get involved with this. Like, I was on the phone I was on a call the other day about technology in Scottish Government. I mean, this is way above and beyond my kind of comprehension, but I'm like, actually, this is really valuable to our service users. What group of service users could we get involved with this? And just connecting them together, it makes it so much easy. And yeah, cheeky, chance your arm. It's all about the cheek. Put yourself out there, email generic inboxes. It's really surprising what you'll get back sometimes. Some people will say no, services are very busy at the moment, but most will say yes. So anyway, I hope that's helpful.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Beth. And I know Marjorie's put in there as well, occupational health can be very challenging as well, because obviously that's the workforce people are dealing with. So we do get that, and I think use them tips for all of your services. I am aware of time, but do please, there's some good tips coming in there already, so that's really good. I'm just going to quickly go through a couple of these, just because I've got you here, and these are the questions that are coming in. But obviously, if you have anything that is about co-production, do put that in, and we will prioritise that as we go finish off this last 10 minutes. We talked about the individualised approach. That comes in a bit about how you meet that in your programmes, and that is very much up to you to decide, but that's what we're looking for. Obviously, it comes with all your equality and diversity and inclusion work as well, and about how you meet an individual needs of students. So what policies you have in your university, what your programme is set up to, how will you meet the needs of students that have maybe got dyslexia or something like that, and that needs to come out in your documentation. Preparation and support of practice assessors and supervisors. Again, a lot of that will have gone into Gateway 2, or will go into Gateway 2, about what systems you have in place to support the people that are supporting students. We know now, and it is part of both SCPHN and the SPQ standards, that it's the responsibility of all registered SCPHNs and SPQ nurses to support students. So it's no longer, we've moved completely away from that CPT role that people were so used to, but actually this is the responsibility of every practitioner. So it's not just about nominated supervisors, it's about every practitioner who has completed their preceptorship has got a responsibility to supervise these students as well. So they need to be aware of the programme, they need to know what they're supervising and what they're assessing, and what your programme looks like for these students. The other things we're getting question on is about appropriately qualified and experienced people even for programme delivery, and that is for your programme. So although it's quite simple, isn't it, if you're running a district nursing programme, that you have district nurses that are able to apply context to that programme. So academics or temporary staff, that is entirely up to you how you manage that, but there are people that can support the students to apply context. Exactly what the students were saying there, actually, that's really, really important, that academics are able on the ground to apply what's going on in practice and to be able to link the theory to that. It is throughout the standards. So this is in our standards framework for nursing midwifery education. It's also in our post registration. So if you're developing new programs, like our new health and social care programs, for example, it's important that you do have staff that are, again, experienced in the field that you're training students to be. They must be able to apply context. So if someone's asking what PSRB means, and that means NMC accreditation, basically, it is Programme Statutory Regulate. Oh, is that it? Something like that. Programme Statutory Regulatory Board requirements or something like that. It means it's, yeah, professional standards regulatory bodies. That's the one. We're so used to these terminologies, aren't we? But it means us, really. It means NMC. If you've got NMC requirements, then you have to meet them. We know now that we say protected learning time within the programmes, and I know from some of the feedback we get from some students that is really challenging even at the moment. And at the moment we're on supernumerary, but it is really important that we're making sure that programmes are ensuring students have got the ability to learn their new role, so that they do have that protected learning time and you're able to manage that and support that. And timely reviews. Okay, so timely reviews, it talks about in the standards throughout the programme. So we don't tell you how often you have to do a timely review, so that students get good feedback to support progression and obviously pick up any areas of concern. But we don't expect it to just be at the end of the programme. It should be, it says in the standards, throughout the programme. And that might be where the individualised approach comes in as well, where you need to alter the timings of reviews depending on the individualised student. Yes, Julie.
Thanks, Elaine. There's some interesting chat going on, other than the fact that very few of us know what PSRB kind of actually stands for. But I think the original point was kind of a valid one, which was coming up because I think it was Shirley was saying she's having difficulties that some of the university processes prohibited the type of engagement that Beth was suggesting, which must be really challenging. And so I think what Julie was trying to suggest is actually this co-production collaboration is not an optional extra. It's a part of the standards, and there is an expectation that type of co-production and collaboration will be occurring. Like I say, it's not an added extra. So perhaps a polite letting the university know that this is necessary in order for this course to be approved. Although I can imagine that is somewhat of a challenge. I don't want to underestimate that challenge, but I think that was the level of support that Julie was trying to offer, and then we seemed to get sidetracked because we couldn't think of the what the letters actually meant. But I think the message itself was actually quite important. So I just thought I'd allude to that while you were just finishing off there.
And you're absolutely right. And this is something that's for all nursing and midwifery programmes. So this isn't something that's new or particular for post-registration, but it is something that McDonald are feeding back that isn't as strong in the documentation coming forward for some programmes. So it is something that you will be asked about. They will want to speak to your service users when you get to your approval event, and they'll want to speak to them on their own to triangulate to make sure that they have been involved. And they do feel that their voice has been heard and that it is a co-produced programme. And they will also obviously speak to your students. We do know, and someone did ask me about, which is true, the ethical or the moral implications of having young people as service users. I don't know where I sit about that one, because I certainly wouldn't be advocating for people to come out of school to do that. But maybe if you have some old people or some families that can, parents that can be there, and certainly obviously with your other programmes you need to have those people on board to be able to get an efficient programme really, and to get it through approval. Have we got any more questions? I know we're just about on time. People will be ready to go back to work, bless them, after having this through their lunch.
I think we're actually quite good. It's not been a really busy chat box today, but it's been lots of different, some amazing presentations, Elaine, that I thought were really helpful. And I got a sense that people were just really listening in to people's experiences rather than sort of asking questions. But there's a little bit of a chat going on there now, which is it is again about some of the challenges that people are experiencing. Yeah. So,
and someone's asked, can service users attend via Teams? So yeah, so what McDonald have said is obviously they would, if they are doing a face-to-face event, that would be their preference. However, they do accept that this can be a challenge. So as long as you let them know in advance, then they will speak to your service users via Teams, even if you've got a face-to-face event. But just have that communication, and you know that that's the situation. Or you can do your collaboration in any way you want. You can in absolutely any way that works best. Some people prefer Teams, some people prefer face-to-face. That's entirely whatever works for you and your co-production. I think thank you very much everybody for attending. In particular, thanks to Beth and all our participants, really, Mostyn and Rachel, sorry, Chico, yes, that's it. I can see that I'm losing names, because I do think that has been really, really lovely, and it's been brilliant to hear your views and actually how you can be involved in the programmes. Thank you so much, and I will send you all an email of thanks, and particularly for our students that want to put that in. This will help for your NMC revalidation, which is really good when you're going forward. Thank you again, Beth, as well, for coming. I know you're very busy. Okay, everybody, this is recorded. Julie can probably stop recording now, and it will be available. It will be available on the website, and it will be sent out to everybody through who attended and through the means that we sent the drop-ins. Just remember, the drop-in sessions are on every week, and we didn't do one this week as we knew today, and so you have got the dates for them. And I know somebody said that I got some feedback from Northern Ireland that the links hadn't been working for them. I have fed that back to our comms team, and we are getting people attending, so I don't know what's going on there, but if ever there is a problem, please just do send me or our Education Standards team an email, and we will try and get you in on the day. Julie? Bliss?
I just wanted to say, people may think I've lost the plot, but a couple of times I've written basic, fair, reasonable, helpful, very informative. If you have a moment, if you could just like whichever one you feel provides the feedback on the webinar, that would be really helpful. I know we've got your thank yous and that, but just it's an easy way for us to collate your thoughts. So that's really helpful. Thank you, everybody.
Yes,
and as Rachel said, Elaine has said, thank you to all our speakers. That's been great.
That's lovely. Thank you for reminding me of that. I think with the time come on and I forgot all about that last slide there. Thank you for that. And on the end there is some contact details. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Elaine, so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.